It's time to rumble on the streets of the Motor City. Welcome along to Belle, where today in the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship, the Dallara IRA teams will battle themselves out once again. Delighted to have your company here on RaceSpotTV. Our Junior Kanky Party back alongside with Ewan O'Leary. And Ewan, after a high-speed thriller in the Lone Star State, it's good to go racing once again, but this time with a street course to challenge the drivers.
It could hardly be more different here tonight. It's going to be the bumps and the low speed at Belle as opposed to the very high speed we got at Texas last week. Very much looking forward to this one once again, but as I say, such a different challenge around here. Overtaking may be tricky. The technical challenge of driving on your own, hard enough.
On one side of the skyline, Detroit, the other side, Canada. It's a great sight, of course, no longer where the Indy cars go racing in the real world, preserved in the virtual world nonetheless. And as we run our way to the end of the season, a street course, yes, and one more yet to come after we make our way over to Nashville, the super speedway, not the street course there. We'll go over to the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, north of the border. That will be a fascinating one before we're back oval racing to close things out. It's a really interesting schedule, and what makes this championship so interesting are those unique challenges.
Yeah, so many different challenges, especially towards the end here. We got a couple of road courses to start our coverage, of course, but now we're very much into oval and road courses alternating almost. But even the two road courses left, to be honest, are not really normal in some ways. Street tracks arguably as well. Certainly this one will provide a very big technical challenge because of the bumps, because of how close the walls are, and because of the relative low speed compared to those other tracks on the schedule.
Yeah, 12 rounds of the championship. It works out, I think, to 7 road courses, 5 ovals, of course, then the streets and road courses mixed up amongst 7 short ovals and plenty others mixed up into the oval categorization. In terms of standings, well, Adam Blocker and Robert Malechka, they're traveling off somewhere in Chile, and so as it stands right now, Blocker still has a little bit of an advantage with Belle, Martin, Marquez, and Ost to the rest of the top 5, looking to try and take advantage of today in what is a decent strength of field, Ewan, and expected to be a pretty tough race.
Yeah, it's always different, isn't it, on the road course versus the oval side of things. We've got to factor that in, but yeah, it is going to be a chance for those to catch up a little bit. And it does feel like, since we started our coverage, that gap between Adam Blocker and the rest has just gotten a little bit smaller. It's felt like, yeah, he's lost a couple of points in the last few weeks.
He's been traveling a bit, let's not forget, of course, with some of his responsibilities track side, but I don't think he will be too disappointed to miss out on this one and some of the preparation that some of the drivers will have been putting in. I saw in the iRacing IndyCar community Discord some group practice sessions going up as drivers tried to dial in the setup, and boy, is that an important categorization, because at a track like this, Ewan, bumpy as it is, managing the bumps is going to be crucial to getting the speed.
Yeah, and just practicing as well, to be honest. Forgetting about the setup for a moment, just practicing for these guys is pretty important. I know they're top quality in their own right anyway, but you need laps around here just to get your bearings a little bit, know where you can push and where you can get close to the walls, so on and so forth. It's important around here at a circuit, as you say, not on the IndyCar schedule in real life anymore, and so 1 or 2 maybe out of practice, and that will have been a factor, and will be a factor this week.
Yeah, but let's not get the new Grand Prix layout of the Detroit City available on iRacing anytime soon. We'd like to use Belle for a little bit more. Qualifying, by the way, is almost done and dusted. They've got about 30 seconds left to rumble. 21 cars in this top split, so it's a pretty big field. Christian Hildegard and Kevin Burrell for the Satellite Racing team currently sit 1 and 2, and then private label team Hype on row 2 behind them, with Phil Krause inside of Connor Harrington. Brian Carey will lion share row 3. I know they were racing some super formulas over the weekend. I hope they're in for some pretty good fighting here today, because that's the session in the books, and boy, this is going to be an intriguing race, that's for sure. There are curves here, not all of them can be used.
Yeah, not many can be used in some cases as well. Look at how high they are compared to an IndyCar. You can really monster over them when IMSA comes here for GT racing, for example, but you don't really want to in these IndyCars. There's a look at turns 1 and 2. You're not really up on the curves so much through there. They're a little bit mountainous. And yeah, there's plenty of places like that around here.
Let's take a look at the starting grid here from the Motor City. Christian Hildegard alongside Kevin Burrell in the Satellite Racing machines on the front row. Private Label Team Hype from behind, with Kraus alongside Harrington, and then Brian Carey from north of the border alongside Will Lyon from across the pond in those iron brew colors, if not in the livery here today. Rashad Craig in the now black and green Indy Alliance Racing number 7 is alongside Hayata Matsuda on row 4. Sam Karasala and Timothy Vaughan share row 5, completing the top 10. John Badeford's got the number 1 car next to his name. Got some work to do from 11th, 1 second off of pole, with Andrew Marquez alongside on that 6th row of the starting formation. Andrew Kinsella rolls from 13th, Yanni Stefanidis from 14th, with Will Weiser, Zach Kugler, and then Tristan Moss and Richard Holt through the rest of the top 18. Just a couple more cars, Seb Alexander, Olivia Haywood, and Davis Trask to rumble through in this top split. I think I saw Olivia mention in the Discord just trying to stay out of trouble, get a result, something that I think some drivers, you and we, very much trying to heed.
Yeah, I saw her mention she's had a nap before this race because it's so tiring going around here. I don't know if that's actually happened or not, but it is a physical racetrack, a difficult one to get a handle on, and one where racing is going to be pretty difficult in some respects, certainly around some points of this circuit, but the start's going to be pretty important. This big run down Central Avenue towards turn 3 for the first time could make or break someone's race.
I'm just hoping the answer is not break. It's going to make a couple of people's races. They've just got to stay out of trouble. Now 35 laps onto the board. Again, in this series, if you're new to it, you have 2 compounds of tires from which to work with. Primaries and alternates. Alternates being slightly softer in nature, but maybe a little bit more short-lasting. Only the cars on the front row inside of the top 10 have elected to start on the alternate tire. So the satellite racing machines will try and blitz away at the start and, well, hope to try and see some trouble in the rearview mirror. It's a dash on the Motor City streets, and here goes Christian Hildegard already away and leaving his teammate Kevin Burrell to watch behind, as in through turn 1, drama, and already the black and green machine of Rashad Craig tags up with Will Weiser, Seb Alexander, and maybe even Brian Carey as well. Out in towards turn 3 they will go, though, single file for the top 6. There's the drama you were wondering about, Ewan.
Well, I thought it was going to be turn 3. Turn 1, in fact, was where we saw the drama immediately happened, and the top 6 have got away fairly comfortably as a result, and then the rest of them behind have all had to pick themselves out the barriers. We've got Brian Carey and Will Weiser already on pit lane. Tells you all you need to know about a very, bad start for some.
I'm pretty sure that Brian's going to be pretty frustrated about that one. Would have been hoping for a decent result, but in towards the middle and final sector of the lap come your race leaders. That was Connor Harrington into the wall, I'm pretty sure, in the number 8 machine for Private Label Team Hype. His teammate Phil Kraus able to catch his momentum, avoid running into the back of him, but already scampering away at the front. Hildegard Burrell, 1.5 seconds separated are the teammates, and then 1.3 seconds back to the chasing machines behind. Alternate tires as mentioned for those at the very front.
Yeah, and this is the sort of phase of the race, or the key in this part of the race. Who's on what tyres? How can you make your way through the field if you're on the alternates? And how can you keep those places, or at least keep the pace high on the primaries? But unfortunately, in the top 10, we've got very little disparity. The top 2, of course, started with the red stripe tyres, but they already were in front of everyone, so they don't have to overtake anybody. They just have to drive away. Be interesting to see what these guys on the primaries do. Are they going to follow each other for the first stint, or will they race?
So you mentioned that Brian Carey and I think Will Weiser immediately down to the pit lane. Now Rashad Craig, Sam Karasala and Seb Alexander are down to the pit lane. So the victims starting to top on up. Here's a look at the replay of what happened in towards the opening corner. And Brian Carey's left rear gets tagged as one car goes around, and then Rashad Craig comes on through. Andrew Marquez in the pink machine slides his way forward as well. A little bit of chaos at the start.
Yeah, it was a very minor bit of contact that has caused something quite major in the end. So not really sure whether we had someone trying to go around the outside or whether it was just a misjudgment, to be honest with you. But it's a very small bit of contact just there into turn 1 and spin in front of the field, and then what can you do to avoid, really? It's so narrow into turn number 1 that you can't really avoid. Few drivers stuck on the side of the road, and thankfully the field was actually quite strung out at the start, so not everybody piled in at least.
Yeah, it was a nice early jump from Hildegard, and that definitely enabled the two VRS satellite racing machines to get 1 and 2. Kevin Burrell's been dropped, by the way. He's now 2.5 seconds off of his teammate, who was truly flying at this time. No driver using a push to pass, at least at this point in the race. With 2 laps complete, we're on to the third of the 35 scheduled laps, and I can already tell it's going to be that sort of a race where drivers are going to be sweating come the end of it. We jump on board with Will Lyon as he hunts down Phil Krause and Connor Harrington for 3rd and 4th positions.
Yeah, they were probably sweating in practice for this beforehand, the race, to be honest. It's a really physical time around here, a difficult race, and when you add in the difficulties of having to overtake as well, it gets even harder. So it is going to be a long race for some, and a very, very difficult one. The race winner in the end is going to have fully deserved this one, but we're a long way from finding out who is going to take that. Christian Hildegard with a lead that maybe seems a little bit, not fake, but a bit fake at this stage.
We'll have to see if there is going to be a phase as well where, because it's a 35 lap race, I'm not exactly sure how that's going to equalize in terms of numbers. Betafer is up 4 positions. He'll jink to the inside of Hayata Matsuda, but no such chance to get through there. I was wondering if there was going to be a send from slightly further behind in what is now a train building behind Andrew Kinsella. Timothy Vaughan, Yanni Stefanidis, and then Andrew Marquez, who got through that lap 1 drama without, it would seem, any sort of damage to the front of his car.
Now, despite the fact that livery makes you think that he's lost his front right end plate the entire time, it's just painted black, so that's fine. And he is going to have to look for a way through, really. He's on the red stripe tyres, and he's behind a lot of guys on primaries. Stefanidis is in the same situation. There it is. The next 7 in front of them, though, are all on primaries, and that means that they're going to have to work their way through them over the course of the early point in this race, and so far Stefanidis hasn't been able to do that.
You can see that traffic not really going to be a factor yet, because it is a pretty high strength of field. 2 splits of racing here on this Monday evening in the Americas region. It's Tuesday morning, early morning for Ewan, but it means that I don't know if we are going to see too much traffic, except for those drivers that were involved in issues. Seb Alexander and Rashad Craig have rejoined the racetrack, but Sam Karasala, Brian Carey, and Will Weiser might be DNF'd for the day. We'll see if we can get confirmation on that. Fastest lap, by the way, if you're wondering. Any surprise from your race leader? A 1:14.021 last time by.
Yeah, no surprise really. Clean air at the front, red stripe tyres from the start. He's got the great advantage at the moment. Christian Hildegard with 3.5 seconds already in this race. He's in the perfect conditions to possibly keep that fastest lap the whole way. We'll wait and see, but his pace right now has completely blown everyone else out of the water.
So I've got to ask you a question now, Ewan. What makes this track so great in your opinion? What makes street circuit so great?
Well, I wouldn't say a blanket statement for street circuits because I'm not always their biggest fan, but I will defend Belle Isle. I think it's the challenge of the bumps around here, which I've mentioned, but it's also the fact that there is actually chance to overtake here. There's technical challenging street circuits where it's very difficult to overtake, and that's not entertaining to race on, but this circuit very much has that. There's that really long straight towards turn 3, which is arguably one of 2 maybe chances. There's that chance to turn 7 as well, which is a little bit less obvious, but it's the fact that you can actually race on here which makes it so great for me, rather than just a technically challenging circuit.
Yeah, let's go back to what you said first though, bumps. So in your opinion then we should repave this place, right? Oh, it's behind Stefanidis almost into the wall.
The public street.
I was trying to set up a joke there. Oh, then he went off and he went super serious.
You've got a month to wait for Sebring. It's fine. You'll have your chance.
Oh, I'm sure I will. I believe you and me. Only question is that on a pest day? I'm not entirely sure. Might be.
Oh no.
I know Bathurst isn't.
Oh well, that's fine. But I don't want Bathurst to be paid, so that's okay.
I don't want to. Bathurst is one of those races where you should be there for the first hour, and then the last hour, and you could skip every little bit in between that.
I don't know. I didn't mind Bathurst last year, actually. I mean, it was all right.
It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but if you're talking about what is actually important, you know?
Well, if you really boil races down to that much,
kind of like a race here, excuse me, as Betafer almost into the wall.
That was quite close. Yeah, I mean, if you really want to boil races down that much, then yeah, you could probably go further than that. But yeah, that's endurance racing for you. And this is going to feel like one, I feel like, for some points here this evening, because it's already getting pretty big gaps around, although there are overtakes here and there, as you can see.
And here we go with Timothy Vaughan on the push to pass. You could see the timing tower lit up there as his blue and teal machine slides up the inside of Andrew Kinsella. And now Kinsella under pressure, like Ewan mentioned earlier, Ewan, from two drivers who are on the alternate tire.
Yeah, but they haven't really been able to do anything with it, unfortunately. They're finding overtaking a bit more difficult than I was expecting, to be honest. And so they're still 10th and 11th. Now Stefanidis recognises this is the chance. Kinsella didn't have a very good run onto the back straight, and he's going to the inside now on the push to pass. It's going to be side by side. Oh dear, up on the curb, and Stefanidis goes around.
And it's well judged by Marquez and Hubler to just slide on through and take advantage. Tristan Moss will gather up 12th position as well, but too aggressive there. We were talking about curb usage early in the broadcast, and well, case in point right there, Yanni Stefanidis down to 13th, and now with a little bit of work to do. Connor Harrington, by the way, I thought he hit the wall earlier on. He had apparently not done so. He's left Phil Krause behind to deal with Will Lyon hunting him down as they work up in towards turn number 3. It's at that point now where I think 7-8 laps into the race, alternate versus primary tires, if there is going to be a crossover point, we're probably getting close to it.
I mean, Harrington certainly seems to be losing less time to Hildegard. The gap only 7.2 now, as opposed to the sort of astronomical differences which they were earlier on in the race. Harrington still lost half a second last lap, though, so it's difficult to say that it's going to come down anytime soon. But we're getting to that point. We're a fifth of the way through already, and pit stops are going to be upon us, which is going to be the interesting point, because I do worry about those top two and where they're going to come out in terms of traffic.
Let's go back and take a look from Andrew Kinsella's, side pod as we just look at the suspension bouncing away. Once that car hit the curb, there was not really much that Stefanidis could have done to save it. However, if you have built a bit more of a compliant car, I wonder if you can get away with a bit more liberty than others.
Yeah, maybe. It depends in some ways. First of all, I don't even think Stefanidis needed to be up on the curb there, because he wasn't even alongside from that angle. I thought he was at the time, but he didn't even, from that onboard, he didn't even look like he was alongside, and so I don't really know why he even hit the curb, but he did, and it sent him around. Clearly he hasn't got any leeway in that setup and any leeway to hit curbs, or at least not that one. So he's gone around, and that's going to make an even more difficult day for him now.
John Baderfer slides past Hayato Matsuda in the Hydra-Race geodesing racing cars, charge back upwards through the field. Andrew Marquez has passed Andrew Kinsella, who for a moment there I thought might have got a little bit of damage to the left side of his front wing, and indeed just looks like it's a little bit raised now as compared to the other side of the car. You jump on board here, you can kind of see it. It's not the most obvious, but I'll break out the yellow pen tool and we can just look at how much of it is raised on this side of the car, how much of it's raised on this side.
Yeah, there you go. There's the example. Do you remember the days when the aero screen wasn't there and you could actually see whether there was front wing missing or not? Well, not missing, but when it was a bit out of shape. It used to be so obvious, didn't it?
Aero screen good.
I know, yeah, but not for that specific job. Yes, that was... oh my word, Kinsella's all over the place, but he's okay and he's still 10th.
Well, he hit the wall through the penultimate corner, and I don't know how he didn't lose it through the final corner, except to say that the suspension clearly is not totally broken on his car, but boy, he's asking for some trouble. Zachary Hubler in that Distinct.gg machine will be the next up in line to try and work on forward, but well, I mean, there have been some close moments here today. I know sometimes it's just the way the iRacing gods smile with their netcode on everything, but the drivers are definitely leaving it out there.
They are, and it's good to see. This is Tristan Moss trying to stay ahead of Stefanidis, who I can't really work out how he's not overtaken Moss at this point either. Seems to be struggling with making overtakes right now, just Stefanidis. Not quite got the exit off of turn 6 he really needed there either. So into 7, is he going to be in a similar situation he was with Kinsella a couple of laps ago? Well, not even as close as that. He's still stuck behind through these sections where he is clearly faster.
He's going to have to now, I think, wonder about strategy as well. Rashad Craig has just come in, but I think that's also partially because he was about to start to be dealt with as lap traffic as the leaders begin to come around to now drop onto the back of Seb Alexander. out of the final corner. Will either of these drivers hang drivers right? It is a fast, committed pit lane entry. No, they will not just yet. Have to get to that topic of pit entry sooner rather than later as well, because when the first drivers come down, it's a pit entry that it's scary, at least in my opinion.
It's just high speed. Well, I'd say high speed. It feels like it, given the amount of slowing you have to do and whatever. At least, yeah. It's not particularly technical corners wise, I suppose. And you're not scared of being hit by someone from behind either. I've just come from a Montreal broadcast, by the way, where people were. I saw someone slam into someone in front because they were going into the pit lane and someone wasn't. It's not quite like that, but it is a bit precarious, and surely it's coming soon. But no, Hildegard stays out again.
He, of course, would probably be amongst the first to come down to pit lane, as Andrew Kinsella and Zachary Hubler. At least one immediately back on the flatbed. That's Kinsella's number 20, so that's two of the power slide machines back in pit lane. That's number 10 looking worse for the wear, and definitely going to make the trip back towards the box.
That front left is at an angle I've never seen. That's crazy. There we go. Well, yeah.
Not bad, isn't it?
Damage. Oh dear. That's horrific. He'll be in the pit lane with Zach Hubler, I'm afraid. It's turn 7 is causing more problems than I was anticipating tonight. I've got to say, it's narrow through there, of course, but it is one of the prime overtaking spots, and so I guess it should have been expected a bit more.
Let's go ahead then and try and figure out, was it 2 into 1, or did Kinsella have an issue in front? Oh yes, he well oversends it, and well, because the track funnels in, nowhere to go, Zachary Hubler runs into the stricken Andrew Kinsella.
And you're committed at that point as well. You've turned in, you're on the brakes, and you are committed to the turn. There's not a lot you can do to get out of the way, and even if you weren't committed, I don't see how you can get around Kinsella in that situation anyway. He was pretty much blocking the entire road with the way his car laid to rest. So unfortunately, that was a winless situation really for Hubler.
Closing in on, well, probably the pit stop cycle. Let's check in with Brian Carey. Brian, what happened at the start there? It seemed like a little bit of a checkup as you ran in towards turn 1.
All right, sorry, Arjuna, I actually don't have you. My sound settings aren't great. All I just want to say is it's so good to be back here at Detroit IndyCar broadcast, and disappointing to get taken out first turn. Put a ton of practice in, and it just went all for naught. So wish I could add more light to that, but unfortunately I cannot hear you because I am bad at technology and apparently bad at studying races.
Well, Brian Carey joins us then with a little bit of an update. He's not the only driver to now have retired. We're, I think, out from 21 down to, well, Sam Carousala's back out there and running, but I think we're left at 16 standing contenders, not even halfway into this one.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why Carousala's out there. I guess he can pick up some positions, even though he's
Safety
only...
rating, mate.
Well, that's true. I don't often think about these things. I'm not an
iRacing.
Well, I don't care enough about my iRating or my safety rating, to be honest with you. I'm just there for vibes.
Vibes.
Really.
Kids.
Just there for a good time. And so, yeah, I guess so. I do forget this is an official race. It does count.
No cap.
Do you know what that means?
No cap. Sheesh. Now we've exhausted my vocabulary of youth words, young kids words. Man, I'm going to be 30 this year. I'm definitely not young anymore.
Just the phrase youth words describes exactly what you're describing.
Oh, exactly. I know. Oh, this is the character we get into. This is how Lewis and myself have become so successful.
What, by using youth words?
Well, at least we haven't seen any intentional wrecking here today. That was definitely not what we were hoping to see. That would have definitely been a change of pace. I think what we are about to see, though, is that traffic that these drivers down in the podium battle are dealing with. Connor Harrington is suddenly only 2 seconds in front of Phil Krause and Will Lyon.
Yeah, and these two are still close together, Krause and Lyon. They've never really left each other, to be honest. Less than a second between them, even now, into turn 1. Even though they're a couple of seconds behind Harrington at this stage, but still close between themselves. Traffic, as I say, getting involved now, and it's only going to get worse than that, really. It's a short circuit in relative terms, and so despite the fact you mentioned there's quite a few out of this race, there is lapped drivers out there driving again. I think Kinsella's even back out again, is he?
No, he's sitting in pit lane right now, I think.
Sorry, yeah.
I don't think he's that much of a glutton for punishment.
I mean, he's still in the server, though. That's what I mean. He's not given up entirely.
No, the Dallara IR18 has clearly gotten a lot more repairable on iRacing than the last time we were allowed to broadcast these machines on RaceSpotTV. But as the traffic moves aside, no such dramas for Kraus and Lyon, who are still now only about 2 seconds off of Connor Harrington. And again, as we get ready to get into the pit stop cycle, I'm guessing, therefore, we're probably seeing a one-stop race. It's only 9 seconds or so the margin between your race leader and the first driver on a different strategy.
Yeah, and it really is going to come down to these pit stops and what Harrington can do on the other side of them, and arguably Kraus and Lyon as well. But I feel like Harrington, with the track position being ahead already, if he maintains that, he will find it a little bit easier than the other two to get on terms with Hildegard. But of course Hildegard has Birel not so far behind, and he's sort of going to help him along whether he wants to or not, is Birel, because everyone's going to have to overtake him first before they even think about the race lead.
So, in terms of push-to-passes, still seeing most at the front, pretty reluctant to use it. I wonder if there's a bit of fuel mileage going on in this first stint as Timothy Vaughan uses that 60 to 70 horsepower spurt to pass Matsuda, who's now starting to slide backwards after charging forward on the early parts of this race. But yeah, as mentioned, top 5 drivers yet to use a single one of their push-to-passes. You can flick your attention over to the left side of the screen where those push-to-pass numbers are. 10 usages, of course, allotted at the start of the race. And well, as we close on half-race distance, I'm surprised that no one started to get groovy with the button.
Yeah, it feels like that's a lot for here, really, because it's limited sort of regions where you can really use it, and especially for those front 5, they've not really had the need or the want to use it just yet. So that doesn't surprise me particularly, but that does mean we're halfway through now. That does mean they're going to bang through them at the end here.
Yeah, I mean, 1 a lap, 2 a lap. I mean, the question is how it's not like when we were at the Nordschleife, all right? You remember when coming onto the Dottinger, you had to wait sometimes to use the push to pass so it didn't expire by the time you got to the end of it. Here, you're trying to get onto the button basically as soon as you can, and you can only activate it. I forget what the exact threshold is, but you have to get past a certain threshold on the throttle. And so there's going to be some urgency and some, let's say, maybe overzealousness when it comes to drivers trying to get onto the power, trying to get onto the button. And I hope that everyone's got the tyres underneath them coming towards the end of the race.
Well, that's going to be the problem. I do feel like with the way that the red stripe tyres are lasting so far, it's looking good in that respect. But then again, they haven't used any push to pass yet, so I guess we can't really comment on what that's going to be like when we get towards the end here. So it's going to be an interesting challenge, and as we're about halfway, I'm somewhat surprised that the top 2 are still out there, but clearly they are feeling absolutely fine on those tyres, and the gap has only sort of plateaued between Hildegard and Harrington at the moment. It's staying at around 9 seconds now.
I think that last lap might have been the first where the drivers behind were actually faster. Will Lyon with a 14.8 compared to Hildegard's 15.003, so we're only talking 2/10 there. But Kraus and Lyon still finding themselves within about 10 seconds off of the leader as Hayata Matsuda pitted last lap. Timothy Vaughan's pitting this lap. So we're clearly into the pit stop window. And the longer that the drivers can go on the alternates, they'll feel like they've got a little bit more ability to push, worry less about what the ultimate speed is of the primaries. Because clearly what we are seeing, alternates faster at the very start of the stint, and then they start to plateau, and there's that crossover, but it only comes 17 odd laps in.
Well, and because of that, I'm not entirely sure why Harrington, Kraus or Lyon haven't gone for it and gone early on the reds here and just seeing what they can do with a bit of a longer stint, given what's happening with the leaders now. Still no pit stop from this front 5 by the looks of it, and so I am surprised, because clearly the Reds can last from this point to the end of the race. They more than do the distance at this point. So why haven't they taken the risk? Because only now are the primaries starting to come into their own and starting to be quicker. That's after 19 laps. There's not 19 laps left in the race for that to happen to their red stripe tyres.
I don't think it's traffic, because Phil Krause, if it's about a 30-second pit delta, could drop into pretty clean air, you would think. So, yeah, they could go for it. Connor Harrington is already, though, I should just say, 1.5 seconds off the back of Kevin Burrell. So one of the satellite racing machines making very good use of the tires in the early stint, building the advantage. Kevin Burrell, on the other hand, as opposed to Christian Hildegard's maybe tire whisperer strategy, now has struggled a little bit more, leaned on the tires just that little bit more, and now will start to feel the pressure just that little bit earlier and maybe come in one lap sooner as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It remains to be seen, really, whether it's down to tyres here, but for Hildegard and Burrell. But I do feel like Hildegard has just been quicker, and now he's into the pit lane. Good call from him at this point, because he's just starting to see that little drop-off, and both of them are in on the red stripe tyres. So 19 laps on them. They're now coming into the pit lane. I think Harrington had to go on for one more there. There's no point really following them in, because you might as well at least give it a go in terms of overcutting here. At least try to. It might not be successful, but to try and overcut one of them and then get on the red stripe tyres, try and go for the win.
Well, I think part of maybe why they didn't pit is that Phil Krause and Will Lyon 14.7 last time by effectively for them. Maybe think that they are just fast right now on low fuel. So there goes Hildegard off and away. 8.4 second stop for him, 28.5 second cone to cone time effectively. 8.2 for Burrell, so a little bit shorter, but he's still, 5 and a bit seconds behind. And now with an additional car between, he's behind Andrew Marquez in the train.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The biggest problem for him is that Andrew Marquez is in front of him. That's the thing that could help hold him up most, and that's exactly what these three wanted to see. That is perfect for them, really. As Krause just gets in the wall, that I think he'll be okay. Just sort of scraped along it on the left-hand side there, but it'll be okay. Now, how long do they wait? How long are they going to use this low fuel, as he said, to use the speed they've got? It's interesting dynamic, because you're not on the ideal tyres, but you are ideal in terms of fuel. It's a balancing act here.
I've just got a DM from Adam Blocker that says he agrees. He doesn't know why Phil hasn't pitted, which is high praise, because I don't think Adam has ever agreed with something I've said on a broadcast when it comes to strategy, which, to be fair, Ewan, is to his credit, because I'm usually wrong and he's usually right about it.
I thought you normally asked him, to be honest.
Yes, but he'll tell me stuff and then I'll still manage to say it wrong on a broadcast, apparently.
Oh. Well, I mean, we're trying to say stuff quickly. I mean, we haven't got all the time in the world to explain these things, you know.
Yeah, but you see, he's a race engineer, so he understands the time pressure.
Well, yeah, it's different though. Time and race engineer and broadcasting, isn't it?
We have an easy job, Ewan. Don't
we
you
do
pretend
have an easy
it.
job. But we've just got to be brief sometimes, and it comes out wrong probably. But anyway, I'm defending you. What do you mean? Anyway,
you're trying.
Anyway, another lap past the pit lane in a moment, and I'm very interested to see who blinks first, almost. So I can't imagine all three of them will be in at once. That would be just bizarre.
So Connor Harrington's just gained 3/10 that last lap, 14.721 for him. So it was a 15.0 for him the last time around. So he's found a little bit of pace. He's brought it up. What is it going to be for Hildegard? I think that's going to be the important factor. First lap on these primaries. Is it going to be in the same sort of a 14.7 bracket? It's 3/10 off for Harrington. Maybe the clean air he's got right now worth taking advantage of.
Well, clearly it very much is for those leaders, and they're very much benefiting from the situation that we're in at the moment. So I wonder if they knew that. I wonder if that was a sort of voyage of discovery for them, whether they've seen Hildegard come over the line there and thought, well, this is working, or whether they knew that it was going to. That would be interesting, because it is a perfect situation right now. The gap for the racewomen will be coming down. There is a slight concern that we are getting towards the end of the race now. I mean, there's only a third of this to go, and that's the slight concern for me. Are there enough laps left? Because it was a big gap.
Is Phil Krause going to stay out of the wall? Yes, he will. He's at least not managed to get lost on the streets of Belle. Here's that pit entry though. Phil Krause has to go slightly tentative, mainly because he's got his teammate in front, and therefore Will Lyon does the best thing he can. He'll go one lap longer as the private label Team Hype duo down on the lane.
Yeah, you might as well, because Hildegard's not going to put that much more time into you, I don't think, going an extra lap here. There he is in the bottom of your screen. He is going to roar past, but for how much? How big is that gap going to be? And can Krause and Harrington reel that one in?
I think, again, it's also going to be, where does Kevin Burrell factor in? Can he get between the two private label Team Hype machines? He'll be alongside Phil Krause on pit exit, but Wisconsin Zone will have the outside line, will have the momentum, and hold on with the alternate tyres that will come up to speed a little bit quicker as well. Margin between Harrington and Hildegard, 7 odd seconds. That's the gap they've got to close on these tyres in these next couple of laps.
So half a second a lap, are we saying for them? Well, no, need a bit more than that actually to close in. And
Might
then
be
you
a
want
second
to,
a lap at the
Yeah,
start
maybe.
based on the trend.
and if you want some time to overtake, then definitely, yeah, second a lap and you'll be fine. But that's going to be difficult to get, especially with the way that these tyres are going to level off towards the end of the stint, as we mentioned. But then again, they're only on them for 13 laps, whereas the others were on for a good 90. How much levelling off are we actually going to see?
It's a good point, actually. I hadn't even factored that one in. You can't afford to lock these tyres up too much, though, especially in these early stages. Conditioning important too. So as Krause and Harrington look to push to close on the back of Hildegard, will Lines into pit lane as you'd expect. Of course, race lead has already swapped hands as the private label Team Hype duo fly through turn one. Fast right-hander into the left, both past the number 4 machine. Burrell's going to be once again stuck behind the drivers coming out of pit lane, and now Harrington's going to use the first of his push to passes in the quest to try and close.
Yeah, now this is where they're going to be used, and Hildegard's just going to save them all up so that he can defend with them. That's the interesting part in this one. But the worst news that Hildegard could have got out of all of that pit stop cycle, I think, is the fact that Burrell didn't get ahead of them. He would have been hoping the 3 would have to make an overtake at least, and it would just stall their progress. But in the end, that didn't happen. They've got free air, and barring the lap traffic, which is getting out the way very nicely so far, it's free air between the two, the top 2.
Okay, Ewan, question. And to be fair, there's one correct answer here. Long Beach or Belle Isle?
Belle Isle.
Good. Okay, we agree.
This is what I mean about Belle Isle not being a quite normal street circuit. Long Beach feels like you're just going from block to block.
So I feel like there are older versions of Long Beach that I prefer more than the modern version of Long Beach. However, just as a whole, I enjoy this track immensely. And where else are you going to get situations where Marcus Ericsson can come out of nowhere to win a race because Will Power's engine refuses to actually begin to start up? Connor Harrington, fastest lap for the 1:13.755. Ewan, that's 1.4 seconds quicker than your race leader.
Yeah, never mind the second we were talking about. He's got nearly, well, not nearly 2, but a second and a half comfortably. That is very nice for Harrington. There is a fear about how long is this going to last for, and admittedly he is pushing very hard, but this is looking good for Harrington right now. It looks like he is going to be able to fight for this as long as Krause doesn't fight with Harrington, and that would be a huge shock if he did. So it will be, I'd imagine, 3 for the lead at some point the way this is going.
Yeah, you got teammates here, but I think as much as Krause will try and insert himself into the mix, there's only so much you can do once you're following behind a car. You don't want to admit this, but quite often it's very easy to be lulled into running the pace of the other drivers.
It can be, and he's just got to not worry about this at the moment. There's still 10 laps to go. There's still a long way. Got to ignore somehow the fastest laps of Connor Harrington, 13.7, another 1.2 seconds. It's difficult to ignore, really.
A bit of a response there from Hildegard, yes, but not sufficient enough to really warrant, I think, any sort of safety, as we've now hit the 10 laps to go mark. There's the Satellite Racing, the red and blue entry that jinks to the right, back over to the run down the back straightaway, and now with that margin shaved down to 3.6 seconds. Once these drivers latch onto the back of the leader, there is a couple of little moments of traffic here and there that they could catch, that could be the one thing that Hildegard relies on.
Yeah, it could be, but you don't want to be relying on stuff like that, really. If that's what your race win is sort of hanging on, that's not the thing you want to really be worrying about. And they are quite a way up the road as well, so I wonder whether we're going to get there. It depends, really. And so far, as I said earlier, the lap traffic has actually been very nice to the leaders and got well out the way. So if that happens again, then it's going to have almost no impact here.
So 21 started, down to 16 running, and only Sam Karasala significant laps down. 13 drivers still left on the lead lap. Hildegard beginning to start to feel the pressure on the button, it would seem. Will Lyon now with the fastest lap, because Connor Harrington slightly slipping in speed, 1:14.1 last time by. Still 8/10 quicker than your leader though, gap under 3 seconds as they continue to try and work. You talked about the fall off coming. I'm not sure if the tyres have necessarily reached that mark, but we were talking about how difficult it can be to run laps as fast and consistent as that.
It's a remarkable pace we've got at the front of the field, really remarkable, and just a joy to watch, really. We can even count Will Lyon in this, to be honest. Top 4 all just guiding their car through the circuit at the moment, just picture perfect almost. Even Hildegard's driving well right now. To still be in the high 14s is impressive at this stage, and actually going quicker than he was at the very start of his stint here. His pace is not dropping off at all. He's still driving well, but there's just not a lot he can do at this stage. He's doing all he can, but as I say, there's limited stuff that he can do. So 8 laps to go, 2.5 seconds, and now he's starting to use push to passes, somewhat surprisingly.
I think we're all now just throwing caution to the wind. Harrington with another 13.9 last time by, another second chopped off of your race lead as it's under 2.5 seconds. This, of course, a track that Formula One once deemed not good enough to go racing at anymore. Can you imagine what it would have been like with the previous generation Formula One hybrid machines, not the lumbering ones that we have now, but the one that you can still experience on iRacing? Is it the Mercedes W12?
I don't think it
I
would
hate
suit.
the model numbers.
I don't know which one that is, but one of them. I don't know. It probably doesn't suit a racing around there, but what track does, really, for everyone these days? It's very difficult. So I think it's better off sticking with IndyCar, or going back to IndyCar, I should say.
Come back to Belle Isle. I think that's what we're trying to say. Although, I will concede, pit lane wasn't as terrible as I thought it might be. We'll come back towards the stripe. 8 laps about to be complete. We'll have 7 to go, with the lead gap now down just 2 seconds. The satellite racing machine of Christian Hildegard still leads. Connor Harrington increasingly, though, under pressure, not from his teammate Phil Krause, but Will Lyon in that 4 has been closing and is now with the of course, probably freshest tyres of them all, maybe the lightest fuel load of them all as well. The one in the hot seat in 4th spot.
The line didn't go out quite so hard at the start of the stint here, and I think he's reaping the benefits of that right now. He's got the fastest lap of the race, and he's actually quicker than the 2 in front. He was the only driver in the entire field still in the 13s on that last lap. Harrington and Krause are starting to waver a bit, starting to struggle. Harrington only gained half a second on that last lap, for example. Lyon gained a full 9/10 of a second, but that's not going to matter too much for Lyon. He's got 3 overtakes to make here in what's going to become 6 laps.
It'll be a game of leapfrog between some of these drivers, you would have to assume, and that's where push to passes and the fact that we've still got so many of them, it's going to be a factor. Your race leader, though, is in that dangerous position where in the rear view mirror you'll see your competition. Equally dangerous. Your competition, the predators hunting you down, have visual target acquisition as they now work to the line officially with 6 laps left to go. Phil Krause does have 8 push to passes left to use. Christian Hildegard's down to 6 at the front.
And once again, I know I said it earlier, I'm surprised Hildegard's using them. I guess you've got to use them at some point, haven't you? But I would have thought he'd save it all up for when this battle is going to be on, if it gets to that point, of course. But I guess he wants to keep them at bay for a little bit longer. And the fact that he's still got 6 remaining with 6 to go, I think we can see a little bit what he's trying to do with that.
He can't afford, I think, for it to get too close, because all it then takes is one surprise move for things to go nutty. We've seen some wild things in the past here on Monday night. Hopefully we can stay clean, not talking green because no safety cars in these official road races on iRacing to worry about. This is only 35 laps. If you want to go longer racing, well, iRacing's bringing back the formerly named iRacing IndyCar Series, now newly reminted as the iRacing IndyCar Tour, where you'll be able to have full-length races around streets like these, around some of the fast ovals, short ovals that we have on the schedule as well, across a schedule of competition that follows the NTT IndyCar Series and adds in appropriate adjustments here and there. Going to be fun. Make sure you stay around and stay tuned for that one across of all iRacing social media. But now as we come towards 5 to go, it's still 1.3 between your leader and the chasing pack.
Yeah, Harrington almost looking stuck at this stage. 1/10 of a second gained, barely that on the last lap. And this is a little bit on the concerning side for Harrington. Is he just going to get to that plateau just as he can't quite get into the slipstream and get the tow from Hildegard? It's very interesting at the moment. We're on a real knife edge with this race in the top four as Lyon is trying to make moves. Crouch knows it as well.
I mean, Will Lyon has been the most aggressive with his push to passes. 4 left to go, as we're going to see 4 laps to go this time once we see the start-finish line once again. But that leapfrog game that he was going to have to play to try and work his way forward into the fight for the win, not going to, I think, have time to materialize. It's now within a second, though, for Connor Harrington. If he's had a lap or two to back off, cool the tires down, he might still have an opportunity to go helter-skelter once again and to push to try and get to the lead. But 4 laps, 5 minutes left to rumble. Has the private label Team Hype Machine thrown everything it can at your race leader?
I think there's still something left there, but it's going to be difficult. Lyon didn't get a very good run out of turn 2 there, and his chances of winning here certainly are diminishing very quickly. Unfortunately, track position has been very important around a street circuit, as you would guess, and he's not quite had that over the course of the day to really get onto the top step. But Connor Harrington might well get there. He's not made a single overtake so far today, actually, but that's probably a good thing round here because, as I say, track position important, but he's still got that one last overtake to make, and he is now running out of laps.
I think he's also trying to bait the race leader into using the push to passes in a way that he's not gaining time and maybe only mentally defending. Also, just note Kevin Burrell in the other of the satellite racing entries. He's going to have to be in a pretty stiff fight to hold on to 5th, as John Baderfer in the Hydro Race Geodesic Racing Machine is now closing as they'll come towards their own little 3-lap to go marker. Phil Krause a little bit wide, not high and dry out of the line by any means, but maybe into the marbles for just a moment. 3 to go as 4 cars battle for the lead here on the streets of Belle Isle. Hildegard still with those 4 push to passes left to go. He hits the wall momentarily, but he's in control as he has been for the 32 laps preceding.
And this is the problem now for Harrington, is the fact that he's got very little tyre advantage, if any at all. He hasn't got a push-to-pass advantage. He can't use any more. Well, he's got one more, but, you know, what's that going to do for him? Hildegard seems to be in the clear with regards to that. Where is Harrington going to seize this advantage? He's still half a second away as well, which arguably is not really close enough. Now Harrington's going to use another on the way down towards turn 7, and they are now going to be even. So where is Harrington's advantage going to be if it's not in the tyres, it's not in the push-to-passes?
It's been a race very much where fine margins in terms of pit calls could decide it all. There was, though, a moment where Hildegard's rear end almost stepped around on him through the fountain section. Got a little bit loose, a little bit sideways. Harrington in response through the right-hand hairpin also got a little bit sideways as he tried to get onto the power. 2 to go this time by Connor Harrington, continuing to try to throw everything he can at your race leader. There is some traffic up the road that probably will not be a factor. Hildegard now has been able to bait Harrington into using the push to passes, and now it's some understeer to boot through turn number 1.
Yeah, he's got to give it everything here, Harrington, but the tyres are not letting him now. He is really starting to struggle as he gets closer. He's really pushing now with the front end. It really increases the gap, actually. 0.8 of a second. Understeer really starting to be a problem for Harrington. And does that mean Hildegard is going to hold on here to the end? Because it's been, he's got the track position. How is he going to ever lose it, really, in this situation with Harrington struggling so much?
John Baderfer has been able to get past Kevin Burrell. I'm not necessarily sure if there was some help there, but it's clear that you can make moves. Christian Hildegard's just been able to defend in the right ways, not placed himself in situations where he's had to make defensive moves either. Sometimes we often talk about Ewan, just don't make a mistake, don't give the opportunities, and you won't have to really fight too hard.
Well, yeah, not only has he not made any mistakes or anything like that, he's not defended fresh air at any point either. He's not made defensive moves when there's not been required, because Harrington still hasn't been close enough. Is he close enough now on this last lap with Hildegard just being held up by the traffic?
Here we go, Tower will light up like a Christmas tree for sure, as everyone tries to burn whatever extra horsepower they have to try and make moves. Deep under the brakes for Harrington, will avoid running himself too far wide through turn 3 this time around. You can see the traffic up the road as they get ready to flick through the right onto the power one final time and onto the back straightaway. Harrington within a car length and a half, but he's out wide, he's into the wall. His teammate will try and close, but I think it will be status quo as they get to the braking zone for one final time.
Yeah, Harrington had a good line and a good part through that early section, but he just got it wrong on the way through turn 8, and now he's going to really struggle to make this move. It's only technical sections from here to the end.
I mean, whoa, you sometimes need fighting to have a great race, yes, but then you get the races like this, thrillers, where strategy reigns supreme, and even if at one point your race leader has a 10-second advantage, come the checkered flag, it's 4 within a second. Christian Hildegard will hold on in the satellite racing machine to win on the streets of the Motor City, behind a photo finish for second as Connor Harrington just manages to fend off his teammate Phil Kraus, while Will Lyon will settle for a valiant 4th position, along with John Baderford cycling to 5th. Oh, it's always a treat to come over here to Belle Isle.
Fantastic race, considering there was so little overtaking. Very entertaining and nail-biting to the end. Top 4 covered by less than 9/10 of a second at the flag. Tells you all you need to know about that one. It was always the case of can Harrington get past Hildegard, but in the end the track position was far too strong.
And, well, just one pit stop as well, but such a large window, it seems, actually made for quite a compelling strategy configuration. And so, looking forward to more races like that. And again, 4 cars within 9/10 at the front of the field. Boy, when we go over to the circuit Gilles Villeneuve in a couple of weeks' time, setup's going to be very different, Ewan, because you're going to strip out maybe a little bit more downforce, wanting some speed in a straight line. Oh, I can't wait for that, to see what it's going to be all about.
Yeah, you definitely want a lot more straight line speed around there than you want around here. Although Harrington probably wished he had a little bit more here today in terms of just on the straights, though, to try and get past Hildegard. It was too difficult in the end, but such a different challenge coming up in a couple of weeks. But yeah, an IndyCar sort of iconic track, if you like, and it's delivered a great race in the end.
Well, the spectators will probably be trying to get onto the limited exits off the Belle Isle Island after a thrilling race. Drivers will want to celebrate. Hopefully will come and have a chat with us as well for some post-race coverage. We can dial you through the race results, where satellite racing on top in qualifying and satellite racing on top in the race itself as well, with Hildegard only half a second clear at the end, while Harrington, Kraus and Lyon really did deliver a thriller all the way to the line. John Baderford's charge forward from 11th spot, season grabber, finish inside of the top 5, while Kevin Burrell drops down from the outside of the front row to 6th at the very end of the day. Hayata Matsuda was able to stay out of the trouble at the start, unlike some of the others, while Timothy Vaughan, Andrew Marquez and Tristan Moss make up the rest of your top 10. All on the lead lap, importantly, as could be said for Yanni Stefanidis, Richard Holt and Davis Trask. 1 lap down for Olivia Hayward, who did finish, fortunately, along with Seb Alexander, while Sam Karasala stayed out of trouble in 16th, despite coming back out with a damaged car, just trying to get some laps and some finishing positions. Andrew Kinsella, Zach Kubler, Rashad Craig, and then Brian Carey, along with Will Weiser, unfortunately not seeing the end of the race. We'll go down to the post-race coverage room, where, not seeing Hildegard or Kraus standing by, we can chat instead with Connor Harrington, who joins us now. Connor, great to see you back on a Monday night. How did it feel to be back in the car and hunting down someone all the way to the end there? Connor, do we have a copy with you? Apparently not. Well, so excited to be back on Monday that Ewan, not one but two guests, has now decided they don't want to listen to us anymore.
I know. I don't know what's going on today, but yeah, it's not happening for us. Unfortunately, I don't know what he's doing, but I can imagine he's heightened after that race. It was an exciting one. It was a hard chase, I'm sure, a hard race, and unfortunately, he didn't quite have enough to take the win in the end. But he did a good job. I think he did all he could, really. I don't think anybody could have reasonably pointed to anything in that race that he did wrong, where he would have won as a result.
We'll see if we can drag him up for a second time and grab a chat with him. Connor, do we have a copy with you now?
Yes, finally we have a copy. It's been too long since I've been in a Race Spot interview. We got to get everything straightened back out.
There you go. So talk to us about, how much you're shaking right now and hunting down Christian all the way to the end there.
Man, you can tell I haven't raced this car very much, especially on a street circuit in a while, because that was probably the hardest I've worked in a good long time. We almost made the strategy work there at the end. We were actually kind of writing it off at the beginning of the first stint. Phil and I were we were like, oh, well, Christian's just going to walk away. And suddenly, I guess we found a lot of pace. He must have had a bad outlap or something like that. And we almost got it done, but a lot of fun to have a race that close. I mean, 4 cars within a second at the line is pretty incredible.
Help settle the debate that Ewan and I, we agree on this one, so it's not really a debate. Long Beach or Belle Isle?
This is going to be probably slander, and I'm sorry, but I am much preferred to Belle Isle than I am Long Beach. I like that there's a couple of really nice high-speed corners, especially in turn 1 and 2, and I really love the first, 2-3 sectors of the racetrack. Those are really fun to drive in the sim. The last sector I hate with a passion, but the first 2 sectors is just really fun because it's just full commitment and you're just inches away to the wall and you're leaving paint on the sponsorship signage there if you're really getting after it, which is really fun.
Hey, that makes all of us in agreement, so it's good to hear. Congratulations on the podium, Connor. Hopefully we'll see you next week as we go oval racing at Nashville.
Yep, cheers, guys. Good to be back.
And we'll drag on the second private label Team Hype driver. Phil Krause didn't get lost, at least, on the streets of the Motor City. But, Phil, how was that as you were being, harangued, I think. That's the only way I can say it, by Will Lyon at the end of the race.
No, I didn't get lost around the track, but I got lost in the time zones. Yeah, I thought this race was an hour later than it actually was, so we went in with a solid 20 minutes of practice. But, yeah, it was fun.
Is that why you have a little bit of damage to the left side of your front wing?
No, that's a skill issue purely.
Okay, I see. How was it, though, once you got the damage? That's something that I don't think we get to talk too often about, Phil, is that, it's so easy to pick up damage here. How did that upset the balance of the car after that?
I would tell you if I knew when I got the damage, but when I pressed the damage button, they didn't say I had any, so I'm not sure if it's just a client-side thing or something. I'll have to look at it after I'm done with you guys, but yeah, that was a race. Honestly, same thing as Connor. I thought Christian was just gone at the start, especially when he ran the reds so long, but we had really good pace on the reds at the end, just not quite enough.
It's one of those tracks where it's hard to pass sometimes. You gave it your all, Phil. Congratulations on the double podium for the team, and hopefully we'll see you in a week's time at Nashville.
Yeah, cheers.
So double podium for the private label Team Hype squad. Great to be able to chat to the both of them, and looking forward to, not going racing on the streets of Nashville because, in the real world that's always been messy, but Nashville Super Speedway with its unique concrete surface, it should be an interesting race to say the very least.
Yeah, we're back to the ovals again, and looking forward to that as well. Hope there's a little bit more scope for the lead actually changing than at Texas. It was very difficult to displace the leader, as we found out 1 week ago. Hoping that's going to be a little bit different next time at Nashville for the penultimate oval and the third last round.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming to the end of this season. Of course, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve and then Pocono to wrap things up, a trip to the Tricky Triangle. Ewan, did you just say that you want more swapping for the lead?
Well, yeah.
You will want to make sure you're around for Pocono then.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I miss Pocono being on the IndyCar circuit. I really do. But I know it's marginal. I know why it's not really, but it's We're in sim, so why not?
We'll have that discussion when we get around to having that discussion, which is to say, hopefully, in the final round. You'll join us for all of that here on RaceSpotTV. It's so good, of course, to have IndyCars back. Last week on the ovals, but continuing the diversity, the mix-up that the drivers have to contend with, this time on the streets and a bumpy street circuits at that as well. No match, though, for Christian Hildegard in the strategy masterclass that he played out. Connor Harrington, Phil Krause, and Will Line. 4 cars split by 9/10 at the line, but just one victor. Such is motorsports. For the team behind the scenes at RaceSpotTV, Ewan O'Leary alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in a week's time, same place, to unleash the Dallara IR18s at the Nashville Superspeedway.